So while participants are still joining, welcome to the ones who already are with us for this session on Sulapac's approach to circular economy. So Sulapac is our brand new member of the ABIS community, and they joined us last year, after winning our Best Impact Startup Award last year that we launched at our annual colloquium in Berlin. So we are very pleased to have Maija Pohjakallio from Sustainability Director at Sulapac joining us today for this session. Please feel free to have your camera on so that when I will ask you to share your questions, we can also see you. And as in the previous sessions, I will invite you to ask your questions live. So of course, feel free to use the chat. I will try to pull out questions from there as well and from our app WOA, but ideally, we will invite you to ask the questions live. So we have about 20 participants now, and I'm sure there will be some more joining us. But I would say we can start now. So let me first introduce Maija. She works as Sustainability Director at Sulapac, a Finland-based startup. Sulapac's innovation is to combine wood, chips, and binders in a unique way, leading to materials which biodegrade in the sense that they don't leave microplastic behind. During her career at VTT, the Technical Research Center of Finland, prior to Sulapac, Maija was involved in the development of the Finnish Plastics Roadmap, acting as a member of the Secretariat assisting the Ministry of the Environment. She completed her doctorate in 1996 at the Helsinki University of Technology, currently Aalto University, in physical chemistry, and has work experience in several fields, including team leading, sustainability advocacy, chemical industry, and research and teaching. She's particularly excited about combining chemistry with sustainable development. So a warm welcome to Maija and to all the participants. And Maija, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carolina. So good afternoon, everybody, and greetings from Helsinki, Finland. And big thanks to Carolina for the nice introduction, and again for the nice award we got. It's really nice that ABIS has this kind of award for Best Impact Startups, and we were lucky ones to win it last year. And also many thanks for this opportunity to share with you some circularity aspects at Sulapac. So at Sulapac we have a mission. We want to contribute to saving the world from plastic waste. And naturally this necessitates many parallel actions, like we need more recycling, we need more reuse, we need to change the consumer habits, and as well we need new materials to replace conventional plastics. We are especially concerned at Sulapac on the issue of microplastics. So like the flows of microplastics into our bodies and into the environment. WWF has estimated that on average we all ingest about 5 grams of microplastics every week, which corresponds to about one credit card. And if we take a longer time perspectives, it means that every year we eat about 250 grams of plastics in the form of microplastics, which means, of course, that in 10 years we consume 2.5 kilograms of plastics in the form of microplastics. Not all the impacts of microplastics are not yet known. Fortunately, there's a lot of research going on, and some of the early results already suggest that when the microplastics accumulate in the nature, then when a certain threshold concentration will be reached, some natural ecosystems can be really badly hurt. Some researchers have even compared the issue of microplastics to these CFC compounds that were used as cooling reagents in 70s in freezers, etc., which at first were thought to be very, very safe because they are so permanent chemicals. But then in the end, it was found out that they were too permanent, and then they accumulated in the ozone layer and started to disturb that. Well, CFC compounds, they have been forbidden, fortunately, and we'll hope that before the same happens with the issue of microplastics, we find more sustainable materials and that we can decrease the amount of microplastics that flows into the environment and that flows into our bodies, because then there are also some research results which show that microplastics could have very, very negative effects, for example, on human immune systems. But the story of Sulapac began in 2016 when our founders, Suvi Haimi and Laura Tirkkonen-Rajasalo, started to think how they could apply their knowledge on safe materials into making more sustainable packaging. And at that time, Suvi and Laura had an academic career in the area of biomedical materials, so materials that you can really place inside your body, which means that actually safety is very much in the DNA of all Sulapac materials. Well, then Suvi and Laura, they jumped off their academic careers, they got funding, and that's how Sulapac was founded. And it was in 2016, and now in 2020, we are 30 people working at Sulapac. The beginning was not easy, but fortunately, Laura, we worked very hard. This is an image of one of the first trials. Unfortunately, Laura, we worked hard, and today our materials look a bit more beautiful than this one here. Here you can see some examples. One of our first customers were actually in the sector of cosmetics and jewelry packaging, which are typically sectors which pay a lot of attention to appearance and look of the material. So fortunately, we don't have that black material anymore. Here you can see also in the square some examples of customers, which, as I said, include cosmetic sector, jewelry packaging, also some food companies, for example, Finnish Fazer, which is a chocolate company, etc. And the innovation of Sulapac is to combine wood chips and biodegradable binders in a way that gives these materials several advantages. And one of the advantages of Sulapac materials is that it has actually some of the benefits of conventional plastics. For example, it can be processed with the existing plastic machinery, processing machinery. So no investments on new machinery is needed. The plastic product manufacturers can replace conventional plastics with Sulapac granulates. And then the very big advantage, of course, is this, that as we use wood chips and biodegradable binders, no microplastics is left behind. The issue of microplastics was also tackled actually in I listened to the Patagonia session, which is really interesting because there was discussions on microplastics from textiles point of view, but actually the same issue is very much present even in packaging. And there are some research results which show that even when you open a cap of a bottle, then due to the mechanical stress, some microplastics come out of the cap and fall into the drink. So microplastics is not a bare end of life issue, like what happens to plastic waste. Microplastics can also be released during the use of packaging and items. Then our materials are safe and circular by design. And as said, very simple mass manufacturing is possible. And we also offer a custom designed solution to our partners and customers. We do a lot of co-creation projects with big brands. And then we aim that when we scale up and grow, that the production of Sulapac items would take place near where they are used, because our material can be processed with existing machinery. It's easy actually to have this production of the items near where they are used. So we are building our network of cooperators all the time. We are very happy that in addition to ABIS, we also were acknowledged by, for example, Wired, a UK magazine. They chose us to be on the list of 100 hottest startups in Europe. in 2018, and we were also on the 2019 list. Our portfolio currently covers 3 recipes, or 3 families of recipes. The premium one, in which you can see on the right-hand side, in which the wood chips are a bit larger inside. Then we have the universal material, with the same idea, wood chips combined with biodegradable binders, but the wood chips are a bit smaller in size. And then we have a material for extrusion, for example, for making straws. When Sulapac was initiated, the first product actually was this Sulapac jar that you can see on the left-hand side. You can still buy Sulapac jars, but we have now partnered with Quadpac, which is a big cosmetic packaging manufacturer. And then via Quadpac, you can order Sulapac Nordic Collection jars. So that's kind of one example how we try to partner with brands and manufacturers and scale up in that way. In the straw, our partner was Stora Enso, which is a big Finnish-Swedish pulp and paper company. And it's really important for us to find good partners, and so we find like more possibilities to create new solutions and also to increase our networks. We are actually a member of Ellen MacArthur's CE100, so Circular Economy 100 network. And why we joined is we really want to promote circularity in all Sulapac actions. And we like the definition given by Ellen MacArthur Foundation on circular economy, like designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use. But more and more, I think it's becoming important, these regenerating natural systems. And we have actually learned a lot when being involved in this CE100 network. And as said, throughout the whole value chain, throughout the whole life cycle of our products, we try to integrate in all our actions these principles. Another definition I like is by VTT, the Technical Research Center of Finland, where I actually used to work before I joined Sulapac. Is that like in an ideal circular economy, we would have materials, information, and energy flow circulate together and powered by renewable energy. Of course, this is an ideal situation, but we are all working towards that ambitious goal. Here are some examples. What does it mean for us? How we try to integrate circularity in our actions throughout the value chain? Of course, it all starts from sustainable sourcing. So the wood chips we use, they come as an industrial side stream, and then we select very carefully the providers of our raw materials. And we try to maximize the bio-based content in all our recipes. And then all our materials, we pay careful attention to that they are safe and circular by design. And as said, our co-founders, Suvi and Laura, they have their background in the biomedical materials, so they are really used to pay attention to safety. We don't own any manufacturing sites ourselves. We use this kind of a factory as a service concept. So we partner with subcontractors, with brands, and then we use this, as said, factory as a service concept. So I tend to say that when making the recipes, our R&D tries to mimic the nature, but then in business, we a bit probably mimic Coca-Cola. So we pay a lot of attention to the recipes. That's like our focus. And then our focus is also in the branding. So that's how our business works at the moment. And our main business is to license the material. So not sell the jars or ready items, but to license the material to our customers. We pay attention to optimize the usability. So during the use phase, no microplastics comes out, or if some porous material comes out, it can be digested by naturally occurring microbes. So really we have tested that our materials and pieces of it can be biodegraded even in open environments. And then we also pay a lot of attention to have this, to extend the use phase of our of the products that are made from Sulapac materials. Currently, the main recycling route for Sulapac materials is industrial composting. We have some recipes in pipeline which will be home compostable as well. And then we are actually all the time working and trying to find also new recycling routes for Sulapac materials, because I think one of the drawbacks of developing circular economy is that the waste management systems are very fragmented, even inside one country, not to speak about comparing different continents. So I'd really like to have several possible recycling options for Sulapac materials. So wherever you are, you would also always have a sustainable way to recycle your Sulapac materials. And collaboration with partners is really essential in all we do. As I said, even starting from the production, then we do a lot of cooperation products, R&D products with our partners and brands. And then more and more, we are also trying to cooperate with our customers and partners in developing take-back system and improving the recycling options for Sulapac materials. And our aim is to constantly improve our circularity performance. And that's one of the reasons why we were really happy when Ellen MacArthur Foundation, they started to develop this Circulytics tool. And we were actually part of the testing group as well, as we are part of the CE100 network. And now we have tried the smarts, the Circulytics tool, like in real life, and got our scorecard. And what we find very good in this Circulytics tool is that it actually assesses the entire operations of a company. It doesn't focus only on material and energy flows, but also on strategy, on planning, on people and skills, stakeholders' involvement. So it kind of tries to measure not only the energy flows and material flows, but also your business models and networking and like circularity on a larger scale. And the application process is really simple. You just have to collect some data of your company. There's actually a link. I think it's free for everybody. It's a web-based link and web-based questionnaire, and the company fills in the data. Then the foundation reviews the data, and then after a while you are provided the scorecard and some comments of the data. So this is the first version of the tool, and at least in this first version, of course, some might think that one of the drawbacks is that nobody checks the data that the company fills in. So it's totally, how would I say, the company has to be honest when filling up the data, of course, otherwise it's of no use, the tool. And then there's a link if you want to have some more info on the tool and some companies who have been testing and using it. And our scorecard is here. Here you can also see the elements that are actually assessed. It's a bit like the school report in US. So you get grades from E to A. A is the best one. And then the aspects of circularity that are assessed are actually divided into two groups as enablers, where's the strategy, innovation, people and skills, system, processes and infrastructure, and then external engagement, and then the outcomes. And then what will be really interesting is that after a while, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation has collected some more data, some more companies have used the tool. They will provide you an industry average of your sector. So then you can really compare your score on the industry average in your sector, which of course will be really interesting, but it will take a while. They have collected enough data to really calculate the average scores on each of the elements. And as you can see here, we do very well, especially on the innovation. We are really proud of it. But then some of the input and output results we got, we still, of course, have some challenges as we are in the phase of scaling up. So, for example, as the volumes of Sulapac materials in the market are still quite low, we don't yet have any precise data how much of our materials are really recycled after the consumers have used them. And then we have to answer, of course, in the questionnaire that we don't have any precise data on the recycling of Sulapac materials. So that's, of course, one thing that lowers the score in that aspect. But we are looking forward to collect more data on the real recycling dates, and then, of course, to improve our score in this sense. And then we really believe that when we scale up the production with partners, with sustainability as their priority, it will also improve our, especially our input score. As explained, we don't own any production sites ourselves. We don't have any one factory that we can optimize ourselves, but we are really dependent on our partners. And we really believe that, for example, these two actions will be ways to improve the input and output scores. But even though this is just the first version of this tool, I think already it enables benchmarking, sharing and learning, and inspiring other companies and our own company more and more on circularity. And what I personally find, I think is one very important thing, is that these kinds of metrics, it promotes the view that circular economy is much more than improved material management and recycling. So exactly actually the same themes that have been discussed already in the previous presentations, that we really want to promote the transfer into a more circular society. It's not only the recycling targets that have to be raised up. I think that can even be one of the obstacles to develop a real circular economy if we pay too much attention on just increasing recycling rates on any cost, and not taking into account whether it's upcycling or downcycling. It could even direct the development in the wrong sense. But fortunately, there's now quite a lot of discussion on this systemic change, and I think these kinds of metrics will be tools to accelerate the systemic change as well. But so far, as this is the first version, I know that the foundation is already working on the second version. This metrics stays on a company level. So of course, if you have an ideal tool to measure the circularity of a company, it would need to extend the metrics to the whole value chain and not just on one company. So probably, I hope in the future, there will be metrics that actually could, on some level, also measure the circularity of inside the whole value chain. But this is, I think, a very good first version. And I think that the COVID-19 virus has really indicated more and more that we really need to rethink our whole lifestyle. And there's a very interesting article by McKinsey on this, where they compare actually the COVID virus and then the climate change. And then they just test, or they give some advice to companies, consumers, authorities. And two things they say or have recognized for companies to be important is decarbonization, and also this systemic change to build more resilience, which I think the resilience is something we really need to, focus more on all levels, like on individual, company, and society level as well. But at Sulapac, I'm happy to work with Sulapac because we are really committed as a company to support with our products, with our philosophy and our actions to boost the systemic change and the development into a more circular and resilient society. and taking into account the boundary levels of the world, and making hopefully like a good life possible also for our kids. So here are some company information if you're interested. Thanks a lot for your attention, and really looking forward to your comments and start the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maija, for this presentation. So we can now move into the questions and answers. And so I will just check if there is anybody who raised their hand. And we have Wayne Visser, so I will unmute you. Wayne.
Hello, and thank you for the presentation. And I'm a professor at Antwerp Management School and at Cambridge University. I had a question about what is the potential of your product in terms of replacing plastics? So in terms of performance, which categories of product do you think it performs equally well or better? That it could actually replace plastic, and which ones doesn't it? And linked to this, I wondered how much flexibility you have in the look of the products that you produce, because not everybody would want necessarily to see the wood chips in the material, but I presume that you can constitute it to have lots of different design looks. So that's the essence of my question. And if I can sneak in another one, it's that how do you feel about the idea of something being that is biodegradable or compostable having a higher life cycle impact than something that is actually recyclable?
Yeah, thanks a lot for the very interesting question. I start from the first part. So yes, we have a quite large R&D team. I think almost half of our personnel is working with R&D, and our portfolio of recipes is extending all the time. So currently we have these 3 families of recipes, and if I start with the current recipes, we actually can replace conventional plastics in like packaging, also for cosmetics, even for foods. All types of packaging, then like consumer goods like hangers, hygiene products, things like that. But the current recipes, they cannot stand very high temperatures, not over 70 degrees, and they don't have exactly the same, technical properties as the very best technical plastics. So we don't recommend you to make a helmet out of our materials. So the with the present or current recipes, we could replace like packaging and consumer goods. But then we have new recipes in pipeline as well. But mostly we have some more flexible recipes in pipeline, for example. But at the moment we don't target for, for technical plastics. So if you have very high technical demands for the materials, that's not our current target. Then of the wood chips, yes, we have some recipes in pipeline in which they look a bit different. Yeah, very, very good point. And then concerning LCA, yes, we have been doing actually LCA analysis. And what is really actually interesting is that when you do LCA for a product, it's much more complicated, of course, than when you do it, for example, for energy, bioenergy or fossil energy, because first of all, the use phase is very different. And then if you do like cradle to grave, or cradle to cradle even, then the end of life phase can be very different for different products. So we did actually quite a nice experiment on if we would recycle Sulapac, because we have already tested, or VTT, the Technical Research Center Finland, has tested that it's possible to mechanically recycle it. So if you would have large volumes, you could have a separate collection and then remelt it and make new items out of it. But of course, at the moment, the volumes are still low, so that doesn't exist yet. But we made a calculation with our LCA consultant, and they calculated what would the LCA figure be if we first of all make Sulapac and then we recycle it, and whether we replace PET plastic, ABS plastic, PP plastics, or virgin Sulapac. And actually the credits in these different options are very different. So in some of these options, end-of-life options, we get like a negative footprint, and in some, I think in all these material recycling options, the footprint totally is negative. But then it depends very much on what kind of credits you get, depending what you choose to replace. But I think we see that LCA is a very good starting point for sustainability analysis. But it's you have to be very careful, of course, because then you cannot compare LCA reports that have been made by one consult to the ones that have been made by other ones. And then there are some issues, for example, the issue of microplastics, that it's not at all included in the LCA analysis. And of course, the circularity aspects, as on a systemic level, it's not in the LCA. So LCA is part of the tools we use in sustainability assessment, and we are extending it. But that's why we are also looking for other tools to assess our sustainability, because we feel that in certain aspects, LCA is not the best opportunities, or if you use only LCA, it doesn't give you, how do I say, precise result enough of your sustainability function.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much. There are some questions in the chat, so I'm going to read a few. So one, for example, is about the circularity auto assessment. I think it's about the Circulytics tool. What do you think about integrating the Circulytics tool with the assessment of environmental impact, for example, emissions? Wouldn't there be a risk to support strategies that do not take into account for climate impacts?
Yes, thank you for the good question. Yeah, it is, because sustainability it's a wide and complex issue. So it's certainly true that Circulytics doesn't directly assess the environmental impacts. So that's why I think we need a spectrum of different tools to assess the sustainability in a holistic manner. But it's completely true that Circulytics alone is not a sufficient tool, but it's good to have in the toolbox of assessing sustainability, because so far some of the other tools, for example LCA, etc., it's very difficult with them to measure the circular performance. So, but certainly you have to have other tools, especially the ones that measure directly environmental impact to complete your sustainability assessment and analysis.
And going a little bit backwards, there is a very interesting question about sustainability and costs, and I will link this to one question that we received from the WOA app. So the question from the second one was about the importance of circular economy to stay competitive in the business. And the question from the chat is, do you think that sustainability comes at a cost? And will this change in the future when more brands will start practicing it, and or will it continue to remain like this in terms of production costs?
So I lost a bit your voice, but I think the question was what is the cost? So are companies willing to pay more for sustainable materials? Did I hear correctly? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah.
Just ensuring the connection is working properly. It was actually about production costs. So do you think that there is a trade-off between sustainability and costs? And yeah, so do you think that sustainability comes at a cost? And will this change in the future when more brands start practicing it? Or will it continue to remain like this in terms of production costs?
I think because there is, I think more and more people and companies are starting to realize that we really need to rethink our production habits, consumption habits, the whole lifestyle and value chains, etc. So I think there are more and more, I'm convinced that there are more and more companies who are actually willing to pay a bit more in the beginning. Of course, how do I say, it has to be somehow cost effective. It cannot cost like 100 times more than the fossil alternative. So it's kind of a balance. But I think in the beginning, some of the novel sustainable materials will be more expensive. But as explained, our approach is that we produce the granulates and then they can be processed with the existing machinery. So there's actually no cost. You don't have to invest in new processing machinery, which of course it makes it's easier to be applied and tested, our material. But of course, in the beginning, our material is more expensive, the granulates, than conventional plastics. But then when the volumes on the market grow, then the price of Sulapac granulates will decrease as well. So yeah, in the beginning there are more costs, but then the cost will come down by the end of the time when the volumes increase. So, but then again, even in the beginning, it must not be too costful. That's actually one of the things our R&D departments is all the time thinking about, because they are very innovative and they start thinking, oh, this recipe would be really great. And then like our supply chain and other people are saying, oh, no, you cannot work on this recipe. It will be too expensive at this point. And yeah, so it's kind of a balance.
I just wanted to feed in a great comment in the chat saying, are we not already paying the costs through unsustainable practices? And I think this is quite a relatable question, also given the situation that we are currently in.
Yeah, and especially if you think of the issue of microplastics, because once it's released in the environment, it's really difficult to remove it from the environment. You cannot solve the issue of microplastics by recycling. Just you cannot take it back. So then there might be a certain threshold concentration, and when that is reached, it will cause some serious disturbance in some ecosystems when the concentration of microplastics, if it just keeps on increasing. So
yeah. So we talked a little bit about like the costs in general, production costs and so on. And you mentioned that Sulapac's business model includes factory as a service elements. What is the role that business model innovation could play within like circular economy and in accelerating the implementation of sustainability practices?
I think it plays actually a great role, especially in the case of small companies, because then if you have a novel material, it's easy to enter the material on the market. And then if you are a very small company, as we are, we only have very limited resources. So when we scale up, the business model is really important. How fast and to what extent are we able to scale up? And then, of course, when you scale up, the production becomes more cost efficient. You can probably save some energy due to the scaling up of the process. The recycling infrastructure gets better, etc. So yes, the business model plays a huge role actually in that one as well. I think business models and partnerships as well, as has been also said by the other presentators today, that it's impossible to build sustainable business or circular business just within your own company. In the very early stage, you need the partners, and the network has to extend all the time. But I think that's one issue, like what makes working in a circular business very interesting is the aspect of networks and working in networks and working together. So yeah.
Thank you. We just have another question coming into the chat. I just want to check if there are any other people with their hands up, which I might have missed. Not at the moment, so I'm going to read the question in the chat. So given that the inputs of your manufacturing processes are the byproducts of a different one, which are the key challenges you face with respect to these reverse flows from a close alignment and coordination standpoint?
Sorry, so like the input of the processing of the production system, what are the...
So I'm going to reread that. Given the inputs of your manufacturing processes are byproducts of a different one, which are the key challenges you face with respect to these reverse flows from a close alignment and coordination standpoint?
Yes, I said that the wood chips we use is a side stream, and fortunately, actually, well, we started our production in Finland. As you know, 70% of Finland is covered with woods, so we have plenty of wood chips as a side stream to the large paper and milling factories. And I think that question is very much also related to the fact that we would really much, when we scale up, also source like the raw materials locally, but then use as much like secondary raw materials as possible. And then if you think of the input of the process, then of course of the coordination, and then also during the process is very important. That then the feedback loops, it's kind of a closed loop system, that there's no waste produced during the production as well, and then the cooling waters are like in a closed loop, and then as much renewable energy is used as possible. So there are actually so many factors, but so far it's but it's true that because we have this working model like factory as a service, we really need to, our logistics is actually something we need special how do I say, skills as well, because of course we need to guarantee the safety of production and the safety of supply and secure the supplies as well. So the logistics and coordinating the logistics, we pay a lot of attention to that one. We actually have a small unit which focuses on logistics and sourcing. And it's a bit different than in companies that own their factories or just have like one or two subcontractors. So it's something we you need special skills, and we are all the time learning new things in that one as well. But it's a different type of logistics and coordination.
And regarding the skills and other resources, there's a question related to when you started. Did you have any help from business support agencies or local authorities or training and networking support when you started up?
Yes, well, one of the first investors were Business Finland. Then I think the company got money from European Union as well. I joined Sulapac in 2019. So I've already like heard the stories of the beginning of the company. But I think at least Business Finland gave some support. And then our CEO, Suvi Haimi, she's a very active person. So Suvi and Laura, they always talk that they made a good, start for the company, because Laura she says that she's her best when developing recipes and staying in the laboratory and in like by the extrusion machine. And Suvi is very outgoing. So then it was a good mix of skills in the beginning, because Suvi was doing a lot of this like networking and calling into places and etc. etc. And then Laura was working on the technological side. So you really need to combine different skills to be able to develop a company. And then I think quite in the early phase, in the beginning, at least in Finland, Sulapac got some reputation because we won some sustainability prizes. So like last year, we won this ABIS prize for the most impactful startup. And then I think already 2 years ago, Sulapac won Green Ally Award in Germany. So through these prizes as well, they helped us to how do I say, raise attention, and it opened some doors. People became interested to hearing our story, and some doors opened. So in that sense, the sustainability prizes, they can have a big impact on the part of a startup as well.
Thank you. So we have 3 minutes to go, and I will just allow one last question. I saw that when Visser raised his hand again, so we'll unmute him.
Thank you, and hello again. I just wondered if you could be more specific on which food packaging your products can replace and which they can't, because there's a lot of different kinds of food packaging. A lot of it is transparent, a lot of it protects the shelf life of the food and so on. So could you just be a bit more specific which ones you can replace with your products?
Yes. So at the moment, we have actually one food package application on the market, and it's a chocolate box for Fazer chocolate sweets. And I totally agree that regarding on the food application, you need to pass different migration tests, etc. So for chocolate is okay, and then of course for all like dry components like flour, etc. At the moment, the recipes on the market, if you use them for water-based substances, either cosmetics or foods, you need a separate barrier. But we also have a biodegradable barrier that then you can like add into the packaging. So that, for example, in the cosmetic sector, then you could also use like use it for packaging for water-based emulsions, etc. But so far there's one food packaging application on the market, and it's the one for food packaging for chocolates. But of course for all dry ingredients, food ingredients, it's self-evident that it's good. And as said, we have. With some brands, we have ongoing co-creation projects. So we are kind of like tailoring some recipes to fit in certain applications. So basically, very many food types are possible to be packed in Sulapac materials, as long as you don't pour in like water of 100 degrees. So that's probably the application that it's not good. It's not good for making a coffee cup or anything like that.
And nothing that is transparent or translucent, right? Where you have to be able to see the food.
Actually, yeah. Actually, a very interesting question, because there have been some customers or potential customers who have been asking that would it be possible to have a more transparent packaging, for example, to have the less of the wood chips and more of the other ingredients in the recipe. With the current recipes, it's not possible, but as I said, we have a large R&D department, and they are all the time have new recipes in pipeline. But with the current recipe portfolio, I don't think we can make very transparent packaging or materials.
Thank you.
If you have any good suggestions, please feel free to contact me. And yeah.
So it's 5 o'clock, and we are reaching the end of this session. So I would like to thank Maija so much for her presentation and for participating to our event, and all the participants that participated to this session. So